welcome to Color Wonder 25. Today we are going to explore swatching. So swatching is creating your color palette using the paint you have made. So if you've made some watercolor paint or acrylic paint, this is a great class to watch and get some inspiration from, because I'm not exactly your traditional type of artist. I'm definitely more of the outsider artist label, coming at art from a uneducated, heartful kind of perspective. So creativity first, solid grounding in color mastery second. So these are watercolors. Obviously they're portraits I created, and I am working on a class to kind of go through that fun process with you guys. But for now, I want you to know that this also counts as a swatch. In this piece, there is watercolor I have mold, there is pencil crayons, there is Posca pens, and they are all intersecting and communicating and dialoguing in a way that can help me learn, but it's also inspiring. So I know there's also some Neocolor crayons in the hair and how that plays on top of watercolor. That's the point of these studies. Swatching doesn't have to be a bunch of little boxes, although that is very helpful and a wonderful process to definitely do, and I did do it. It's not something I like doing per se because it's just busy work in my head. However, I'm just like you, trying to slow my roll a little bit and mulling my own paint and doing the more traditional, less outsider practices is definitely helpful. So this is also swatching. This is also a form of a color chart. Here I used a circle stencil, and these are my hand molded acrylics. You're seeing the French turquoise, yellow ochre, ultramarine violet, Venetian red, and emerald green, and ultramarine blue. Now that ultramarine blue is one of my favorite colors, and I love seeing how it interacts with the colors next to it. So that's why I say this is also a swatch chart. It's a tool for educating yourself. Here I can see how the turquoise plays with the yellow ochre, just how opaque that emerald green is. No matter if it's watercolor or if it's acrylic, it is going to cover 100%. So that's something for me to keep in mind, right? Like when I'm making the raw umber, I'm excited. I'm going to do that for us live on Instagram at some point in January. So for now though, I'm anticipating and trying to envision how that raw umber is going to look next to this emerald green, because the Terra Verte available by Natural Earth Paints is not even close to that opaque. So things to play. I love making non-traditional, inspirational, thematic color swatching charts on watercolor paper. So all of that I'm showing you is done on 140-pound hot pressed watercolor paper. That's my favorite, so that's what I go with. It doesn't warp, it doesn't bend, the paper doesn't lift if you're a little heavy-handed, so it's worth it for me to do the investment. I just buy the Canson. I don't go high-end. I'm not using arches or anything fancy. Here I use a lot of black Sharpie pen in my art. I'm a mixed media friend. I love it. I can't just stick with one. So when I'm swatching, I want to include the stuff I find myself gravitating towards when I'm working on the fly as it is. So I'm going to incorporate my acrylic, but I'm also going to incorporate my Sharpie markers and see what happens when they're on top or underneath the color. So this is a more standard color wheel type of look. This is my power palette. We're definitely going to get into that in the Color Wonder if we haven't already. I'm filming a bit out of sequence, but time is a hot commodity for most of us, so we do what we can when we can. So these are more traditional watercolor swatching. I've gone and made notes. This is something I definitely encourage you to do. Explore your brushes, make notes. Your note-taking is what eliminates a lot of uncertainty and non-starting when it comes to creating your own body of work. If you know what you have and you know what it can do, your brain is always chewing on that information. So creating a swatch chart using the stuff you use is worth it. It's not, I do have swatch charts for paints I don't have anymore, so like what purpose do they serve other than maybe just to be a source of inspiration or a larger body of information. But these ones are working swatch charts. These are colors I currently have. I want to see what they do when they mix together, when they're sitting next to each other. This is also on top of blue stamped ink. So another part of the toolkit of things I like to use. So it's going to be in here in some way. So creating a little illustrative, decorative background with, you know, little characters or flowers or things that you like helps you use these more often instead of creating them and then putting them in a book and shutting them and putting them away. All right, here is my traditional color swatching chart. So here I used the colors on the left are pure undiluted color. They're all watercolor that I created by hand and mold myself. And then each shade next to them is mixed with the one below it. So I do like this. It does help me to really feel confident working with such a limited palette. The word limited palette really can create a lot of anxiety in an artist, because the idea of not having access to all the things, especially if that's how you started your work with art, which most outsiders do, it's what's available to you, what's in front of you, and you didn't spend a lot of money, you're not looking for niche products, you're trying to just create art. So the idea of restricting yourself, limiting yourself, or shifting a little bit of a direction can be anxiety provoking, and that's okay. Go with it, lean into it. The only way around it is through it. So embrace the anxiety and just play. Have fun. This, like I said, we're not always going to be creating square swatch charts, although those are very informational and they are useful. Painting with your paints is honestly your best swatch chart. So making art for the sake of it, instead of having a direction or a project or an end goal, creating art for your journal, say for swatching, is wonderful because it also gives you that confidence. You're learning to build your yes-no bank. By that I mean your internal memory bank, what makes you feel good, what makes you feel uncomfortable in your colors, like all of that matters. Thanks for joining me for this short video, friends. I'm so excited to be sharing my color wonder experience with you. See you soon.